checking out of the beautiful Lake Crescent Lodge, and I'm on my way to an ancient rainforest. It is, I mean, not ancient, it's not like millions of years old, but a buddy of mine named Richard went there once, and his pictures from there, which I helped edit and get printed for him, those pictures are what inspired me to want to come to Olympic National Park. So it's kind of one of those full circle things. Fortunately, it's really close by. The other rainforest I was thinking of going to is like an hour and a half away, and I kind of am in a time crunch because I have to get this car back to Seattle's airport by 4, and then I'm going into Seattle to meet a good friend of mine who lives there for a hike and then a dinner, and then back to the airport and then fly back to Dallas at 1 a.m. It's a quick trip, but if you know anything about how I travel, that's kind of how I roll. So, walking towards the ancient tree grove here in the rainforest. There are certain sentences you don't think you'd really ever get to say, but for whatever reason, here we are. Okay, so what's this nonsense right here? Well, this is obviously my camera, my 7R3, but it's attached to what's called a panoramic gimbal, or pano head or something like that. It's by a company called Really Right Stuff. It's prohibitively expensive, but I like the way it works. And what it's really useful for is panoramas. So in a case like this, where I want to capture everything from about right here all the way over to right here without sacrificing a ton of detail, that's why I use a pano head. So what I've done is I've set my camera up in manual mode, and I've kind of metered the scene, and I know from side to side about what's going to work. This is f6.3, about 1/10 of a second. A little bit underexposed, but that's okay because I don't want that sky to be blown out. So what I can do is I can just loosen this right here, and I can rotate the camera around. And because I have it offset from where the sensor is, that means I won't have to deal with a lot of parallax, which makes it a lot easier to stitch in post-processing. So that's what we're gonna do. So I just have it set up right here, and what I'll do is just click that there. Okay, and I can use these little radians right here, not radians, but whatever they are, to approximate the same distance between each picture. So I'm gonna move that 2 each time. There we go, so third picture. And so I'm going to take 4 or 5 pictures, and then I'll stitch them together in Photoshop. Now, the reason I wanted to do a panorama is I wanted to capture the multitude of trees over on this side, and I wanted to capture what was on the ground on this side. So for that, I wanted a super detailed shot, and once you stitch all this together, it'll end up being probably 150 megapixels, and these shots get pretty extreme. So a lot, okay, not a lot, a few, okay, not a few, 3 of you have asked, what's my process while I'm out shooting, and especially landscape stuff. And I can boil it down to one simple kind of technique that I use. I observe, I try to observe everything, and I just almost talk it out loud to myself. So if I was walking along this path, here's the path, I would say I hear the water over here. The water's too far down, so I can't really incorporate it into any of these shots. I notice how the dark contrast between the tree trunk and the sky above, and you could almost use these two to frame this. I notice how the path kind of intertwines, intersects with nature. Notice there's a stump here on the ground there. There's a little rock with some lichen around it, some trees waving, or some shrubs waving, and I notice there's something just behind that little tree trunk. And then I notice a huge tree trunk up there. So as I walk around, if anything catches my eye, I just start describing it to myself. Okay, so here's an example of what I'm talking about, and I'm just crouching down because it looks more impressive and it looks like I'm more artistic. So you have kind of a straight line here. You have these trees kind of curving upward towards the light, and this root system is just barely hanging on. So I want to capture that, and I think that's going to make a great vertical composition. But that's simply just me going through that process, looking for patterns in nature, and then looking for what interrupts those patterns in an interesting way. Okay, so this is from my buddy Richard. He took a picture of his son Ian standing right under this little shrub right here, that tree branch, and I helped him edit it and had it printed out for him. So to honor him, I'm gonna take that same picture, send it over to him as a way of saying thanks for making me aware of this incredible place. There's one more example before we're going to wrap up the ancient grove part of this little trip, because the funny thing is this whole thing has taken place within like maybe a quarter mile from the road. The main road is like right there. But another thing that I look for are leading lines. That's no secret to you. You're probably all familiar with what a leading line is. But I also want to look for juxtaposition where I can. So if I were to put the scene in front of you, you would say very obviously there's a leading line right there. So what I'm also looking for here is juxtaposition. You see the leading line, but you see the bridge. Bridges normally go over water, but I don't have water. What I do have are these green shrubs, these green bushes. So what I've done is I've set the camera up really low, and so the greenness can almost simulate a bridge over water. And then there's also some really good light coming in from the sun through the trees as well. I just walked back to where I parked my car, and my car was not there, which is really bad when it's not my car, it's a rental. So I sat there for a second. Instinctively I didn't panic because I'm relatively calm and collected, and I realized it wasn't where I parked my car, and that this trail is not a loop like I thought it was. Okay, update. I made it back to the parking lot that my car was at, and it actually wasn't there. I really think it was stolen. Sorry, it's a bad car theft joke. But anyways, this is going to wrap up the trip from Olympic National Park perspective. It's been a great, although way too short, look at an amazing part of the United States here in Western Washington. And now it's just time to drive back to Seattle, unfortunately. But I'm also really excited about seeing Seattle. So all in all, it's been just a fantastic trip. Okay, so I made it to Seattle, and my friend Melissa picked me up after I went to the airport. It took like an hour to get my rental car returned. I got caught in a traffic jam. Then I took a train to Seattle where Melissa picked me up, and she took me to one amazing place on the south part of Lake Union, which is one of the biggest seaplane bases in the country and or world. Now she took me to this amazing place called Ray's Boat House here on, this is the Sound, right? The Puget Sound. So, oh, by the way, this is Melissa. She wasn't sure if she wanted to be in the video or not, but now it's too late. So anyways, that's where we're going to wind it up. I'm headed back to Dallas in like 3 hours. It's a red-eye flight. It's going to be phenomenally uninteresting. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this visit to the Olympic National Park. Hopefully enjoyed some of the pictures. But as always, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to. Leave me some comments below. Let me know your thought. And until next time, this is Andy from Andy's Travel Blog. We'll see you in the skies. Take care.